So it leads me to do a short introduction for Adrian. We did spend a little time before this, and so we're very grateful that Adrian is here tonight to share with us his faith story. If you give me one word to describe Adrian, the word I would choose is storyteller. It depends how you look at it. It may be two words, but storyteller. Okay. So Adrian has this talent for telling stories, whether it's helping his corporate clients to tell their stories, their corporate stories through his company, PixelMusica, or it's also perhaps for wedding couples where he manages to tell the stories of romance and love in the most creative way. I really love some of his videos. So without further ado, you join me to welcome Adrian as he gives us an evening of great storytelling. He leads us through his faith journey, and we can draw inspiration from his faith and courage, especially in moments of doubt and uncertainty. I will now hand over to Adrian to tell his story. Thank you, Adrian.
Hey, thanks, Nelson. I'm going to do a screen share, and so you guys let me know that if you can see this clearly, okay? Can you guys see this? Great. Okay, so thanks everyone for coming out. It's nice to see so many faces here, especially on a Tuesday night, and I'm sure all of you must be tired from work, but thank you for making the time to come out to listen to my sharing. Thank you, Nelson and Bing Sing and Catholic Business Network for this invitation. It is honestly something that I am not usually very used to or comfortable to sharing my full story, but I guess when asked, I think we should always try to respond to the best of our abilities. So today, I wanted to share a little bit from a different perspective in terms of faith life journey and work, right? We as human beings, we are very preoccupied with two things. We love the extraordinary successes and we are absolutely terrified by failure. So, which is a good thing, right? Because if we weren't fascinated by success, we'll all still be living in caves. We were all, cowering inside the cave until we see this first caveman that wandered outside of it. But we also won't be alive today if we weren't terrified of failure. So we keep eating the same berries that killed our friend in a cave, right? So we just continue eating and die an early death. So I think this is a very typical and necessary human response. But what happens is that everything else in between, the 99% of our lives, the ordinary moments, sometimes we don't see the beauty in it. And I'm not alone in saying this. So this is Saint Jose Maria in his quote that there's something holy, something divine hidden in the most ordinary situations, and it's up to each one of you to discover it. So that's the ordinary challenge, right? To see beauty in the ordinary moments. Christians and Catholics, we got a second challenge. If we want to live our faith, sometimes we drive a wedge so hard between the secular as well as the sacred that it sometimes appears as if God is not in the secular world. That means God is only to be found in church. I found this out over several occasions when I meet up with young people. They either come for an interview or for chats with me, and they share how they find it really difficult to hold a job. They can't hold a 9-to-5 job because they find it so meaningless, and they find that there's no purpose, they don't see God in it. And so they yearn for religious life, they yearn for working a charity or non-profit, which is great. So some of them actually go on to do this and they find a fulfilling career and mission and a vocation. But some of them just end up going back and forth, right? They go to a non-profit and they go up to work, and they go to a non-profit, they go to work, and they cannot seem to find a joy because for them, it seems that the secular space is a place where there's no merit, no faith to be found there, and God doesn't favor anyone who works in that space. So likewise, I think St. Jose Maria offers very comforting statement, right? And reminder that God is calling us to serve him in the most ordinary and secular civil activities of human life, in the workshop, in the barracks, in the university chair. So God can also be found in the secular. So this story of my journey will be centered around these very ordinary and secular moments in which it has made left an impact on me and my journey. So my story begins, of course, with my dad, like my parents. So this is my dad. You can tell he's quite a cool dad. He likes fast cars, and he enjoys parties, and he's a person full of life, right? So one day he comes into the room and then he says, "Son, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, there were two boys that were in a boat and they were sailing down a river, and a strong current came and capsized the boat, and they were both swept away. But it so happens that one of these boys got his chain caught into a branch by the shoreline, right? And then it hooked him, and then it stopped him from being swept away by the river, and he held on to that branch, and it saved his life. But his friend went missing, right? It was perished, right? And then he took off a chain and a crucifix, and he said, "I want you to put this on and never take it out." And so it left a deep impact with me about my faith, right? As Catholics. Years later, I asked him, "Dad, do you remember this story or not?" And he said, "No, I don't remember it at all." And then I realized that he made it all up. It was some make-believe thing that he just cooked it up on the spot, right? But as make-believe as it was, it left an impact to me on how the importance of my faith. On another occasion, he told me when I received my first Holy Communion, the Eucharist, he says, "Don't bite on the bread because it will bleed and Jesus will bleed." Then, of course, that's not true. But at the same time, it sealed in me the reminder of the real presence of Jesus Christ in the Eucharist that never left me, right? And so at a very young age, I understood the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist without understanding theology, of course. At home, he and my mom, I would say, had up and down relationship like all couples. But one thing I remember about them was that they loved to dance. And they would dance rock and roll or waltz. And sometimes I would bring my friends, secondary school friends, back home, and I'll make my parents dance in front of me. And my friends are in awe because they've never seen their parents dance or been so romantic before, right? And so in that way, he also left, apart from faith, he left some semblance of shape of what family life should be like as well. And then finally, when I went out to work, he was there too. So he would bring me to his office, and he worked in Afro Asia building in Shenton Way. And I remember as we entered the building, he would greet the security guard. He would greet the cleaning lady, and he would say, "Remember to greet these people because they work very hard for us." And sometimes he would stick an ang pao every now and then to the lady or to the security guard, you know. And he would also teach me when I went for my first internship in a shipping company. His friend hooked me up, right? And I got an internship there. He said, "Okay, here's what you're going to do. Take a piece of paper. I want you to draw the tables around the office. And on the tables, I want you to write the names of the people that you have met. And here, that's how you're going to remember their names when they first introduce themselves." So in this very simple, ordinary way, he sowed the seeds of my faith, what I see as important in family, as well as some basics of what it means to treat other people as human beings at work. And so that was how he impacted me. And I have to be grateful to him for that. In my teenage years, I grew up a lot in Risen Christ Church, and I was quite active with the youth. I was serving in different youth, in a youth ministry. And one day, someone told me there was a talk happening. And this talk was held in CJC, and it was about something about Mary, Mother Mary, you know. And it's a Saturday. And you know, teenagers and Saturday, right? Is that the time for you to really enjoy yourself. And who wants to go for a 3-4 hour talk in some unknown place, a CJC, what's that, right? I mean, it's all Catholic Junior College. I didn't care much about that at that point in time. But something prompted me to just go. Very reluctantly, I went. And then at this talk, I saw two people as a couple. They're Dr. Victor and Vivian Wee. They were given a talk about Our Lady's apparition in a place in Yugoslavia called Medjugorje. And of course, about her call to conversion and asking people to turn away from their sins and to go back to Christ. I also heard and found out about how Mother Mary had always been appearing throughout the history of humanity. So God suddenly, for me, didn't just become a personal God in my life, but he was a God of history as well, sending Our Lady to shape the world events, right? You can look it up, Our Lady of Fatima and Our Lady of Lourdes as well. And so when I left that talk that day, I was crossing the overhead bridge, and I remember very distinctly, my head was swimming, you know. I was like, for the first time in my, I mean, Catholics were born baptized, we baptized as a baby, right? For the first time in my life, the faith became real to me. God and Our Lady became real. And so I went back home that night, and then I went inside the room, and I locked the room, and I knelt down, and I truly prayed for the first time. And then God gave me a very interesting gift. It was a grace, quite unusual one. He helped me to see my sins, my brokenness. It wasn't like I had visions of Jesus or Mother Mary, right? Nothing like that. But He helped me to see the damage that my sins are causing, right? And it pained me greatly, and it grieved me greatly as well. And I cried. I mean, I really, it moved me to tears, and I was praying for forgiveness. And I was asking God, give me the strength to change myself, right? And I don't know, I felt like maybe half an hour of prayer, but when I looked at my watch, it was like 3, 4 a.m. at night already. And that then for the first time was my first, I would say, deepest heartfelt prayer to God. And it really changed my life. Now, I'm no saint now, so don't get me wrong. But at least it gave me that decision to go for that talk on a Saturday night, just like you guys coming on a Tuesday night, gave me that great gift and awareness of the gravity of sin. And so as I grew up in my teenage years, I would find ways to serve the church. Could be in a ministry. And one particular interesting way was that in the holidays, I would actually go and help to clean the St. Francis Xavier Minor Seminary, which is now, at that point in time, was already abandoned because they moved to the new seminary. So I would spend my whole holidays, I would clean and mop the floor, sweep the floor, mop the floor. And then Father Adrian Anthony would pay me $10 a day, right? And then in the afternoon, I get a short break. I will read from the library. They clear out most of the books. They have some remnants of books there, right? And I will read from it. And I imagine what life would be like as a priest, right? So the thought of priesthood did come into my mind. And this stayed with me all the way, even to the time where I was in the army and I passed out as an officer, right? So those of you who serve NS, you know, or at least an officer, when you pass out as an officer, they would make you drink. I don't know why they do that, but make you drink and try to get you drunk, right? And then they will ask you to tell your story or ask you what you want to be in the future. And then they'll poke fun of it, they'll tear you apart. They just keep on, I guess, maybe it's the one chance they can humiliate you a little bit before you actually go on to your role. So they ask me, so Lieutenant Tee, what do you want to be when you grow up, when you go out to work? And I said, I was a bit drunk, so I said, I want to become a priest. And then suddenly you could hear a pin drop in the room. Everyone was silent. The fun stopped. And then my commanding officer said, okay, I think it's time we just call it a night really. So that was a killjoy, right, with that statement. So boring. I want to become a priest. So that thought, obviously, you know I'm not a priest because I have a family, right? So now that thought stayed with me all the way till the time I was in the university. And I went to Australia to do my studies. And there I was, of course, hoping to meet a lot of Aussie friends. But when I walked into the lecture theatre, to my surprise, I saw everyone all black hair, all Asian, Malaysian, Indonesians. And it's only a few rare Aussies that I get to meet, right? Like, oh my gosh, you're Australia, I've never seen one of you before, right? So the whole lecture theatre was filled with Asian. And then, of course, I met my wife. Her name is Jennifer. She's on this call. And she's from Hong Kong, as you can tell from her complexion. So after my studies, I came back to Singapore to work for HP, and then she made a stop by to visit me, and there she actually found a job with HP as well. So both of us started work in HP. So these are some pictures of me. I was an IT engineer, and my first job as an intern in a few years of my work was to bring the whole HP regional data center and set up Asia Pacific Data Center into Singapore, right? So it was a massive project. We actually had to construct a building from scratch, and then we had to move in, hundreds of servers, and everything had to be built. So it was a great learning time. But the story I want to share is of the guy just next to me in the middle. His name is Mr. Wong. So he was my mentor. So on the first few days of work, he said, Adrian, he brought me into a room. He said, let me give you BMT. Then I said, what's BMT? He said, basic manners training. Then he went on, right? He says, okay, so this is what you need to do as an employee. He said, when you walk past a fax machine, those days we have fax, If you see a fax on a machine, you see someone else's name there, you take that fax and you deliver it to that person. If you see a printer, it's empty out of paper of the jam, you clear the jam, you take ownership of the problems. When someone does something wrong, you tell him privately. When someone does something right, you tell everybody. Okay, so in this very simple way, he's not a Christian at all, but he imparted to me, once again, like my dad, this value of looking out for others, thinking for the benefit of others, trying to lift others up, to edify others, right? In that sense, very Christian virtues in a very secular space. Huh? So this picture of us popping champagne, either it was the launch of the data center or it was actually Y2K. I cannot remember which one it was, but it was one of those events that we took this picture. So in HP, I also have met a lot of good friends, right? And one of them, this interesting chap, he was an Orthodox. His name is Seraphim, great Orthodox, but Singaporean Chinese. And so we would talk faith, we would talk theology, we would talk about Christianity. And those of you who have never met an Orthodox, they are very, very fervent in their faith. And he would turn around, sometimes he would, oh, how would he turn around? He says, Adrian, why do you think the filioque is right? I was like, what? And then at this moment, right? And so I had to literally go and read up and find out about the filioque, the whole controversy, and had to research it. And then I come back with him the next day for an answer. And we developed this great friendship. I would bring him sometimes to my church, and sometimes he would bring me to his Orthodox service, especially for Easter. It was beautiful. He explained to me about the iconostasis, the beauty of icons, which I'm a big fan of even till today. And one day I saw a talk in Novena Church, and it was on the Bible. And so I said, okay, I am going to invite this guy. And so he went for the talk with me. And then there's 5-day talk. He attended one of the days. And then we were both blown away because the speaker was a Franciscan priest. And he was explaining the parables and the gospel from the angle of scripture, obviously, from language, from archaeology, from culture, from history, from geography even. And I've never heard the Bible explained in such a deep context, and even from a Jewish tradition as well. I was so impressed, and both of us were so impressed. We came back, and throughout the whole lunch, after that, we were talking and looking forward to the next session. Then my wife was there, Jennifer was there, and she was listening to us, and she was so fascinated by this talk that she decided she's going to join us. And so she did on day 2, and then day 3, then day 4, and day 5. After day 5 of listening to theology and Bible stories, she decided, I'm going to be baptized. I want to be baptized as a Catholic. And so she went for RCIA. And then this is a picture of her in 1998 converting to become a Catholic. And but the day before she converted, she called her dad and she said, Dad, I just want to tell you something. I'm converting by faith. And the father was like, what? What are you converting to? And then she said, Catholic. Okay. Catholic is okay. I don't know why, but her father, who's Buddhist Taoist, was actually very, I don't know, had a good opinion of Catholics, right? So I think that was a good thing for her. So for those of you who maybe wonder whether theology can convert souls, here's one story.
Do you have advice on how we could serve God through daily activities at workplace? And I'm also wondering, how do you find your mission? Yeah, there are really 2 questions there.
Okay. How do I find my mission? Okay, maybe I start with the work, find God in daily life, right? So you can go and Google Saint Jose Maria plan of life. So what he recommends is to all of us must have a plan, because if we don't have a plan, we are never going to achieve anything. I know this sounds so like motherhood statement, but here's what I mean, right? So we should plan our prayer life as well. So, for example, one of the beautiful things that Saint Jose Maria teaches is what we call the heroic minute, right? So the moment the alarm clock rings, you get up, you stop the alarm clock, he will kneel down, kiss the floor and say, servium, which is the Latin word for I will serve, which is the cry of Saint Michael the Archangel when Satan says, non serviam, I will not serve you. Saint Michael said, serviam, I will serve you. And so if we can win that first heroic minute, the rest of the day is easier. So we get up, kiss the floor, and then we serviam and we go, right? Then along the way, try to insert moments of prayer. So maybe at 12 noon, you can try the Angelus. At 3 p.m., you can try the Divine Mercy. Little bits like that. Or maybe spend just 5 minutes, take a walk outside your corridor and just have a chat with God. Little things like that, right? Helps us to regulate. It's like the rhythm of life. I mean, Mother Teresa just finished. I mean, did an interview with this with a reporter once, and this guy was asking her, William Buckley Jr. I remember. You can watch this interview, and she shared that before she goes out to do all this incredible work she does, she prays at least 1 to 2 hours before that. In total, her sisters pray 4 hours a day. I mean, you know this saying, right? If you are busy, everyone should pray an hour, but if you're really, really busy, you should pray 2 hours. So we need to incorporate this rhythm of prayer life and come up with something of your own. If you want, you can even look for St. Jose Maria's way, but you can come up with something of your own to create this rhythm so that you never lose God. It's like doing weights in a gym, right? It's boring doing weights back and forth. There's no meaning. What's the meaning of this? I got nothing to do. But when you exercise the Our Fathers and the Hail Marys, our hearts become more and more in tune with the spiritual life, with God. And then the moment we are in tune, we start to see God in many beautiful places. So I give you one example. I was in a petrol station one day, and then I was lining up at the ATM, right? And in front of the ATM was this old man. You know, old people, and they press the tick, 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 then they put the card in, they take the card out, and then the card in, the card out. Then it's like all building up. Then I was like, I was the third person or second person in line. I was like very frustrated. But because of my prayer life, I remember patience. Okay, so I was patient. So I said, okay, God, please bless this man. Help this man to be able to get his ATM sorted out, everything. So when he finished, right, he walks away. But just as he walks away, this lady in a tudung in front of me goes up to him and says, Uncle, are you okay or not? Can I help you? Do you need some help? Then immediately I was very ashamed, really. Here I thought that being patient was nice. And here this lady is going one step further. She was not only patient, she was kind. So then you see, when we start having this rhythm and regular conversations with God, we'll start to see these beautiful moments. And then, of course, I confess, what I failed to do, not just what I did, but what I failed to do. I failed to be more generous and help this poor man there. Yep. We had kids. We had 6 years in our marriage. We had 3 kids, 3 beautiful daughters. They are all on this call as well. So that's Leah, Christian, and Trina. They are now 23, 21, and 19. And it was them, of course, when they were young. And so at this point of time, I started to worry a little bit about parenting. Why? Because in the years that I was working with youth, I would meet up and talk a lot with a lot of parents, right? And these parents would share with me sometimes their pains and their challenges with youth. Okay, yeah, some parents were a little bit, they admit that they weren't very good parents and they had wayward views. Okay, that's understandable. But the one that troubled me most were those really, really good Catholics that served in church. They had a good family and good faith and everything, but yet the children went wayward, right? Left the faith. And so they pour out their sorrows to me. Sometimes even late in the night, 1, 2 a.m., I'll listen to them on the phone or talk to them face to face. And then got me thinking, how do I know that I can be a good father? Because you see, it's very easy to believe that we are good parents when our kids are young. Before 12 years old, maybe 13 years old, you tell them do this and they will do it. There are no questions asked. They'll just obey you. And then you think, oh, my parenting technique is correct. Oh, I shouldn't spank. Oh, I should spank. I don't know. So whatever technique you believe you have, it's easy to think that it works because my kids are obedient. But we don't know, see. So because of that, I went asking around and I found this organization called Family Enrichment Society. And they were conducting a course, Parenting for Education. And it was a 1-year course. It was pretty intense. We burned our weekends. Both of us attend the talks and the sessions for almost half a day on a Sunday. We had assignments to do. We had books to read. The answers weren't so easy because there's no, there's a lot of assignments that we have to do. And it's not like, because our assignments were done with our kids, right? So there's no model answers at all. Our kids' reaction, we had to record them down, and all these things were sent overseas for assessment. It led up to a diploma in parenting education. But more importantly, I think the course, one of the things that we learned was that every kid has a sensitive period at different ages. And this particular sensitive period is the best time for us to impart certain values. Now, this course is all about values, imparting values. So instead of teaching you about IQ and knowledge, they teach you the love of knowledge. So that's more important because then they'll be lifelong learners, right? So at this particular period, at this particular age, focus more on these particular values so that they are most receptive to it. They probably can learn these values outside of it, but it's maybe a bit difficult. The second takeaway for me, of course, I am the biggest problem, right? Because I am the kind of parent that if I don't set a good example, if I tell them to be tidy, but I'm not tidy, forget it. If I tell them to wake up early for school and I don't wake up early for school, they are not going to listen. So example is extremely incredible. So one of the things I'm most grateful for is to Family Enrichment Society. Those of you, I have to give a plug to them, right? Because now Jen and I serve on the board because we owe them a debt of gratitude. I would say that almost can never be repaid. So we're serving them now as volunteers, and check out their courses. I think they just launched one on sexuality, how to talk to your kids and your teens about sexuality in a very healthy and holistic manner. Okay. So after the course, then it got us thinking even further, right? I realized both of us were earning and working in HP. So we were dual. So you're dual income, no kids, you are dink. If you are single income, no kids, you sink. If you are single income, you got 3 kids, there's no acronym to describe you, right? So we are probably going to be in trouble. But I've realized that I think we're going to be in deeper trouble if we don't find a way to give our kids the gift of their parent back. It could be a father, it could be a mother, but for us, we decide best for Jennifer to be a stay-home mom. So we decided, okay, we're going to make the sacrifice. Jen would quit her job and I would have to try to pivot myself to find and push myself to work harder, right? So I pivoted to a sales job to try to bring my income upwards. And it really, really worked wonders for my kids, because at this point in time, when we were both working, I remember our second daughter, she would be very emotional whenever we leave. She'd be crying all the time. But the moment Jennifer decided to be a stay-at-home mom, suddenly she changed. She became confident. She became happy. There's a picture of her. She's always like posing like all kinds of like stuff. She's very, very happy-go-lucky, and it brought up the best in her and all our kids as well. And I think we wanted to leave this legacy knowing that I wanted to leave this legacy to my kids, knowing that their dad would do anything. If I have to sacrifice myself for them, I would do so for them, right? I will give up whatever I can that I like sometimes for them. And so this was
Jacob has a question about coping when times were bad. So how did you cope? Actually, I remember when you typed in this question, it was about the time you were talking about the COVID-19 situation. But so perhaps you can talk about that situation or bad times more generally.
Okay, I guess when you're saying coping, of course, there's emotional coping, which for me, I just have to, I know this sounds so maybe simple, but prayer. I had to pray. And that's why I say there's a beauty in poverty, right? So I didn't really share this part, but one of the things that when I got called, I felt called to do this, I sensed out that poverty is going to be one of the experiences I have to grapple with. And it was beautiful. It is beautiful. I would say I'm not that I'm rich, right? It is beautiful because poverty teach me how to appreciate the little things in life. Like in the past, I would eat very fancy meals, and now if we go out to a restaurant, like a sushi day or something, or maybe Genki sushi is a treat for us, really, right? So it becomes something that I relish. It becomes like, oh, so good. It tastes like a Michelin star food for me, So poverty has taught me so much. So I think maybe to be less afraid, of course, obviously we have to pray, because that's the beauty of it, is having conversations with God and seeing what God says to us and discovering what God's plan is. Quite fascinating sometimes what he prompts us to. Second thing is that not to see beauty in poverty. Now, when I say poverty, I don't mean now you be content, you become lazy burger and don't work. No, you have to work very, very hard as if everything depended on you. And then you have to leave it to God as if everything depended on God, right? It's like Mother Teresa said that we have to work really hard. So that's the emotional side of things. Then, of course, the money side of things, we have to be prudent. Right? So one of the things that we had to do is to learn how to balance our budget. We have to live within a budget. Now, those of you who ever find yourself in debt and in need of money, and you find that you've got endless credit card bills and bank loans, may I recommend you consider this course called Financial Peace University by Dave Ramsey. FPU, Financial Peace University by Dave Ramsey. This guy has a 7-step process of getting yourself out of debt and into, his whole objective is to get you from out of debt into a space where you are wealthy you are looked after, and then to be a space where you are super charitable. And that's his philosophy. Earn to a point where you can spend your life giving to charities and like nobody you have never done before, right? And so how to get from knee deep or neck deep in debt to this point is he has this 7-step process which he guides you through very systematically. But you must buy the video and watch it, because you must listen to him speak. If you just read the website and get a quick summary, you're not going to get a message. You must listen to his own story to be able to be inspired on how you want to get to that journey. And it's a very systematic way to get you out of it. So it requires discipline. There's no simple way. You have to cut expenses. You have to, and I also had to seek advice from friends. And some of my good friends had to give me advice on how to restructure my company. Say, why are you not doing this? You know, if you adjust this thing, and I'm so grateful to them because they help us out in a time of need, and they gave us some very sensible financial practical advice on how to organize our finances. So seek help. Learn how to journey and pray with God, and don't always look at poverty as if it's a curse. You know, there is something beautiful to be found in that. Even it was tough, and it wasn't easy, of course, with single income, but thanks to, I would say, the lessons of my dad, my mentors, and the many good colleagues that I had who inspired me on how to work. I was like a sponge. I tried to absorb as much lessons. I would often even sometimes go out to young, fresh graduates. And when I see them doing something extraordinary, I'll ask them for coffee. I'll buy them coffee. I say, how did you do this? I was like a sponge, always asking, how do you do this? How do you do this? What do you do? And so by the time I got to IBM, I was doing quite well. I would, and even in HP, in sales, I would always be exceeding my quota. I would be flown to incentive trips around the world. So doing work in ordinary doesn't mean we have to do it with mediocrity, right? That's a different thing altogether. None of us should be mediocre in our life. We should push to the extreme boundaries for success in every way we can. So in IBM, no difference. I was doing well. And then one day I received an email and saying, Adrian, you have won the Lou Gerstner Award. I had no idea what that was. I had never heard of it. I didn't know of Lou Gerstner because he was the CEO that saved IBM. He turned it around, saved from bankruptcy. And so, and then I read through the fine prints of the award, and basically it's a one award in the entire world for that year. And so I was invited to have lunch with the CEO, Sam Parmisano then, and Lou Gerstner in New York. So they flew me up there. I could nominate a team to go with me as well. So I nominated my bosses, of course, because they are important to me. And then we flew up there. And we were treated to Broadway shows. We had dinners in Gordon Ramsay's restaurant, right? And then and then we had lunch with the CEOs, right? And so this is them and me, and they also gave me an award, this little beautiful crystal award. Apparently, they told us that when foreign dignitaries go to the White House, they get something like that as well, right? So I was quite honored. But the moral of my story is this. I came back home one day and I found out that my kids smashed the award accidentally. And it broke into a gazillion pieces, right? And how I knew that is that when I came back home, I saw this sign. So it says, seriously, my awesome father won that award with a cool crystal thingy. It just broke. So I laughed when I saw that, because to me, it was a very precious moment that, number one, my kids were so confident that I would not lose my temper with them and kill them for smashing that award. Secondly, they had a sense of humor to do that, and they to think about it, right? What could they put up there, right? And to me, this speaks volumes that why, and reminded me as well, why was I doing what I was doing? Why was I working so hard? It's because of my family, the love of my family. All these successes and everything is only a byproduct in that sense, which is good. I like it, but also ultimately why I was doing it is because of my family.
How did you process the feelings of losses, and how did you recover and get out of it? She's referring to the time you experienced being retrenched, as well as the breakage of that crystal award that you received.
Oh, okay. I'm only human, so obviously sometimes when setbacks happen, I do feel down, especially when I'm the cause of it. When I'm the one that hurt someone, I do feel terrible about it, and I do deeply regret it. And also when my kids sometimes misbehave, I also lose it. I'm not a perfect parent. I also get angry and upset, right? And I think sometimes it's a good thing, because I think our kids need to see that if I mess up in the world, people will get upset with me, because if we shelter them too much, it was always nice and everything, right? Then I think it will give them a very one-sided view of society, because society may not be so kind to them as well. So they have to get a bit of scolding every now and then. But of course, through the parenting course, I learned that I have to be in control of myself. Okay, so how do I cope with moments of downness? Whenever I go for mass, right, my wife and I enter the mass, I always ask her, today you want to cry father or cry mother? So Mother Mary's side, or you want to go to Jesus' side, right? So we pick one side of it, and then we go and say, oh, lady, why like that? Please help me. So we pour our sorrows. Of course, I don't do this in front of everybody. It's private in my heart, But if you could see my soul, I probably on the ground, riding and crawling around and rolling around and say, why like that? Why my life so kiam-cai? So a bit less decorum. So, but I have to pour out to God, because no one else can save me, and He saved us. And those of you who have tried crying out to God before, you know that God always answers our prayer. And sometimes the answer is no. And sometimes the answer is, I'll give you enough daily bread, just enough for today. Don't worry about the rest of the time. I will take care of it when the time comes. I learned also that I learned, I guess, because, so one story about I have is that my mom was a very volatile person. She used to beat the crap out of me. So she was actually very violent. So because of that history, I also try my best to control my temper and not to do the same to my children when they break the things, or to others when they make mistakes. So I try to take what I didn't get, that compassion or that sometimes gentleness, and I try my best not to pass it downwards to my kids, so that the next generation will be slightly better. Yeah, that's my philosophy. And we also got invited to a marriage encounter program. Okay, now a little backstory about my wife and I. We are blessed to have a happy marriage. I think possibly I can count in my single hand the times that we actually quarrel badly. Okay, maybe less than a hand. And so I thought that when I got the invitation, this gift card, right, I was thinking, I don't want to go for it. I don't need this. The whole weekend off, we're so busy, really, we work, and we're so tired. I don't want to go for ME. I don't want to go for any more formation. I had enough of formation. I really had formation for my kids. It's so tiring, really, the parenting course, right? So the last thing I wanted to go for was ME. And then the voucher was expiring, and then we felt very guilty that my friend bought us this voucher. Then very reluctantly we went. Okay, and then honestly, it was a beautiful experience. I must say that just when we thought our marriage was good, ME helped our marriage to become even better. We were able to communicate so deep about many, many other things and help us to fall in love again. And so we ended up serving 10 years with ME as presenting couples, and many of the couples here, I see here, Gladys and Kevin and Leo and Pat. You guys are one of those that we have presented to, and thank you for your support. I see your love there. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm really grateful for what MB has given us and the friends they have blessed us with. Is an incredible blessing. So at the same time also, remember my dad, right, and my mom, they were fighting like cats and dogs. Okay, in the final years of their life, they were fighting a lot. She had cancer, so she was also grappling with cancer and suffering from it. And one day I said, Dad, Mom, let's go to ME. I bring you to ME. And they said, no need lah, what rubbish, ME, 48 years marriage, and there's nothing, and we are okay lah, we are fine, we are still married, we are not divorced. And I couldn't convince them to go. So one day my wife and I, we very evil, we bought them a weekend. And then we said, hey, Dad, Mom, pack your bags, come, we're going for a weekend holiday. Where are we going? Never mind, just pack your bags. Just 2 days, 3 days, 2 nights, that's it. Just a short weekend trip. We come back. We pack very light, just bring some toothbrush, toothpaste, some clothing and change. And so they packed their bags thinking that we're going to bring them for a trip. And then we drove them all the way to ME house, and they said, what's this? And then they realized that we signed them up for marriage encounter, and he was so angry with me. My dad was so upset with me, and then he was really, really frustrated with us. But then I scolded them. I said, no, you must go. And they listened, and they went. So Sunday night comes in the evening, when I went to, Jen and I went to pick them up. From fighting over before that, they were walking out holding hands. together. So even at their age, they benefited from this weekend. And so I have to give a very nice plug to them. Please, you can consider joining Worldwide Marriage Encounter. It will help and bless your marriage. And you meet a lot of like-minded couple as well. Okay, I think it's not fair to talk about work without talking a bit about bosses. And some observation I've had over the years. Now, if you go to LinkedIn, you see a lot of boss bashing around. Like, oh, bosses should be like this. No, bosses are not like this. Leaders, true leaders are like this. No, this is managers, and they bash bosses quite badly. It's as if, bosses are to blame for all their woes, right? Or their bosses are terrible, this and that, right? And very few posts do you ever see about the role and the obligations of employees, us employees, right? It's like everybody want to point finger at someone else. Nobody want to point finger at ourselves that, hey, I'm responsible I need to do something. Especially, let's look at the field of obedience. You go Google and you type in the word obedience and you see the trend of usage of the word obedience. And you realize it's plunged over time since the 1800s, which is a very fascinating thing, right? So over the years, things like obedience and virtues, you look up these words, they're all disappearing in this world. And I think it has to do with it accounts for a lot of the melodies and the challenges that we see in our times, right? So I one particular story I remember about being respectful and obedient to bosses in spite of whatever difficult situation we find ourselves in. One day I was at a lunch and my boss was there and all my other colleagues, the pre-sales consultants, the other salespeople and one or two other bosses were there as well. And then she slammed the table and then she looked to me, she said, Adrian, you don't smoke, you don't drink, you don't go KTV. How are you going to close your deal? And I was like, what? What a horrible and bad timing question. You ask me in the private, okay, I can answer you, right? But it put me on the spot. Then I was like looking around, and all their eyes, everyone's like looking down on the floor, looking at their spaghetti, looking at their food. Then I had to come up with something fast to save the day. So I said, well, boss, then I have to work 3 times harder than everyone for you. And then everyone was like, whoa. Problem defused, right? And, it was the only thing I could think of to try to salvage the situation, at the same time show respect to my boss and not say, how can you ask me this kind of question in front of everybody or that kind of stuff, right? So I owe her my respect. Regardless of whether I could work with her or not, I still owe her my respect and my obedience. But being obedient doesn't always mean that you have to do everything, of course. So another story, all these happened post IBM. So I was about to close a government contract, and it's quite a sizable government contract. And my boss, quarter end, he had to report to his bosses, of course. He says, Adrian, go ahead and book in the deal. I said, I can't, they haven't signed on it yet. He said, almost there already. I was certain they're going to buy it already. I said, yes, boss, but cannot. But if I book it in, number one, accounting wise, it's going to be a problem. Okay, and then number two, it's not going to look good on you if they cancel or they don't sign. So it was not good for him. I mean, yes, it was not good for me as well, but more important, I was thinking about what would his boss's impression be of him. So he very reluctantly allowed me not to book in the deal. The deal came in, unfortunately, just 2 days later after the quarter closed. So obviously, I didn't end up in his good books, right? So sometimes when we do the right things, it doesn't always mean there's a rainbow at the end of that, right? Or the light at the end of the tunnel. It may actually be a bad situation for us.
So being an entrepreneur, takes a lot of courage. So I have the greatest admiration for entrepreneurs, as I said, right? And in your case, you had to not only venture into a new area where you had always been an employee, but you also sold your HDB flat, get your new venture going. That must have been a very difficult decision, right? Because that was your family home. So could you tell us a little bit about your discernment process at that time, on how did you come to be confident that this was the path forward for you? And also, on a practical standpoint, did you think about a fallback plan? Of course, every entrepreneur will want their venture to succeed, but what if it did not? So how did you think through what fallback might look like? Perhaps you could share with us your thoughts there. Thanks.
So what really like confirmed us, or at least gave us the sense that we were on the right path, was the work of the people, right? We were doing all work for the Catholic Church at that point in time. So like one of the projects we did was the history of the Catholic Church in Singapore. We were also doing work from various missionary groups, and the beauty and the joy that I saw it brought to people's lives, not just the people that watched the video, but the people who worked on the video as well, gave me this sure certainty that this was my calling. Okay, so that's part one, right? Part two is what made me sell the house. Okay, to be honest, there was a financial incentive as well, because at that point in time we had a house that was just near the MRT station in Toa Payoh, and the valuation was very high. So with God's blessing, that did give some semblance of assurance that okay, we can make it, you know, tough, but we can make it. More importantly, actually, my story was inspired by Batman. Why Batman? Let me tell you a story. So I don't know whether you've seen that. I think The Dark Knight Returns. So Batman gets thrown into a pit. And in this pit is this huge hole that no one can climb up off, right? But he finds that there are a bunch of people who were thrown there, and then they were left to die there, but they farm and they managed to survive, and they managed to survive for years down there. And so he asked, didn't anyone try to attempt to escape? Then there's a pathway they had to run, and then there's a big gap in which they had to jump, and they had to try to catch the same gap, then they could get out of it. And everyone who tried to jump out died. And then so they tried to create a crane with a rope, so just in case if the guy jumps and he misses it, he would be saved by the rope. So they would get a very bad bruise from the rope dropping, but they will be safe. So then no one has ever escaped. So one day Batman meets an old man, I think, if memory serves me correctly, and the old man said there's one person actually did it before, got out. Then Batman asked him, what did he do? He said he cut the rope. Then I was like, oh, okay, then Batman did that. So he cut the rope, because there's no turning back. You better jump, you better go all out. Don't go in halfway with a half-hearted attempt. Go all the way, cut the rope, and trust that you make it. So he made it out, obviously. There's no more Batman. So it's not the inspiration of God, but it was Batman that taught me, that inspired me. See, secular, right? That if I'm going to go in, I better go in 100%. Just like marriage, right? I go in 100%. Why have going with guarded sense that, oh, this is my savings, your money, my money, all this kind of guarded, and go 100%, or don't go in at all, you know. So that was number one, the certainty of the growth of the business. I saw the business was growing. Number two, I had that the opportunity in which to sell my house for a decent price. And number three, Batman. Around 2012, Facebook, they became very popular, right? Facebook and social media. So I was on Facebook, and then I saw one of the youth that I knew, that he's grown up now, an adult already, posting very beautiful pictures on Facebook. And then I was very curious. I asked him, hey, come up to lunch. I want to talk to you about your images. Why they're so beautiful, right? And so I bought him lunch, and then I asked him what's he doing. He said, oh, I was working as a wedding photographer, assistant wedding photographer. So I was curious, because I wanted to explore doing some photography on the weekends as well, and some side hustle to earn more money for my family. And then I asked him, how much did they pay you? And he said, oh, $400. Then I said, 400 a wedding? Then he said, no, 400 a month. And I was shocked. That it actually, and I asked him, how long have you been working there? He said, 2.5 years. And so I was like, my goodness, you've been working for 2.5 years. And he said, yeah, I used to earn a little bit more, but they cut my salary down because I was slow to process the photos. By then I was quite angry and upset for him, right? So I said, okay, I registered a company, PixelMusica. Why don't you work under this company? I will buy you the gear you need. I'll give you interest-free loan. You get out of this situation. Go out and make a name for yourself. You take your time to pay me back, right? And so I'll help you find jobs, and you can find your own jobs, and you slowly just help me to pay back the cost of it. And then he took the offer up. He found another photographer who was also struggling to make ends meet. Then I found a very talented filmmaker, and I introduced them all, and then together we started PixelMusica, right? And it was growing very fast at the point in time, because social media was just taking off. And you also gave me an eye-opener to the world of the struggles of creatives. And so I discovered how badly abused sometimes creatives can be because they are very shy to command their value, and then they charge very cheaply. And then sometimes the people not just accept their cheap labor, but they delay payment. So I got stories of people, not being paid for 90 days or 180 days or sometimes years. They have to write lawyers' letter to chase just a few $100s to recover that money. I mean, you can go and Google like media production and lawsuits and everything. You see all these cases coming up that people don't respect the work of creatives, and it's very painful and sad. So around about the same time, I received news that I was about to be retrenched, and I was about to lose my job lah. So it was a scary time. So now, no income, 3 kids. That's another acronym for the which I can't pronounce, right? My wife and I saw this thing taking up, and we said, hey, why don't we give it a shot? So, but how do we fund it, right? Because if we are going to go full time, I'm going to need a cash runway. And so we sold our HDB flat, and we took a portion of it to, of course, for contingencies, and then a portion of it to buy the equipment we needed for PixelMusica. So while I lost my job, I found a beautiful community. I found a beautiful mission in my life. So right now, I feel that God, I feel, I don't say God is calling me, because sometimes I don't dare to say, I don't dare to speak on behalf of God. It can be quite scary sometimes. I don't want to bring, I'm no one to speak anymore on behalf of God. I feel that I'm being called to help creatives live their creative passion, to feed their families, and to be able to do good work for society and to grow, to become good people in that process, right? So this is a picture of after we filmed a music video with Corinne May, and with the team. So a lot of very young people, some of them freelancers, some of them are our guys, right? And it's a very beautiful environment, and I'm surrounded by some of the most beautiful people. They inspire me every day. They teach me so much. I would ask them, hey, how do you do this? How do you? They'll teach me, and I learn from it, right? And I practice a little bit, and I get a little bit better at it. And so I love learning from them. They inspire me. And so Musica was started in officially 2012, right? And our mission is to do work in the ordinary secular world for commercial clients, corporate clients, that is good, true, and beautiful. So those of you who are familiar with St. Thomas Aquinas' Transcendentals, every human being, whatever we do, we are always searching for the good, true, or beautiful. And if you look for the ultimate good, you'll find God. Ultimate truth, you will find God. Ultimate beauty, you will find God as well. So that was my way to express our mission as a company to serve our clients in a secular manner, right? Now, it's a very nice mission statement, but nice mission statement don't always translate to nice results. So I have to be honest, right? And just because you try to do God's work, okay, let me take that back. Whenever we do God's work, He will always bless us. Sometimes the blessing is financial success and material success. Sometimes the blessings can be poverty, which is also a very beautiful gift if you know and understand the power of and beauty of poverty. Because when we struggle, we pray more. You see, when we are wealthy, when we have a problem, we will think that cash can solve it. But when we have no money and we have a problem, we have to pray, we have to trust, we have to get down on our knees and ask for help, you know. And so sometimes poverty brings its own beauty as well. Now, I'm not poor, don't get me wrong. Okay, please. So I'm not in a poverty state. I'm very fortunate. I'm very lucky. I'm very happy to be blessed with a home, a roof over my head. I've got 3 kids, a lovely wife, right? So let me share a couple of stories about trying to do good. So we'll do work that is good and that's true, that's beautiful. So we had this client that was very generous with us. A client we really love to work with because, I mean, we present to him an idea, a proposal for a video, and we say, oh, okay, good, I like it. Very simple. And then he asked me how much. Then we write a check, and then on the spot, he gave us a check. Upfront, right? Not 30 days, not 90 days, not 60 days, but upfront check. And for a small company, this is very valuable, right? And so we would appreciate his business a lot. And then when we finish the work, we'll show him the video, and he said, okay, good, just put in the subtitles here. Okay, done. Let's go, move on, next one. And it was like this, right, with him, and we were really grateful to have him as a client. So one day, one of his colleagues came to us, and basically he said, okay, we are going to launch a new dating application. I said, okay, great, dating app. Tell me more about it. What's so unique about your dating app? And he said, this dating app, guy meets girl, but the girl would state how much it costs to date them out for dinner. Then immediately alarm bells rang, and I was straight away thinking about the vulnerable young girls who might be taken advantage of in such a situation. And I couldn't say yes to it. So I had to find a politically correct. So I told him, I'm so sorry, I do not know how to tell this story. It's beyond my skill and capacity, right? And so he said, okay, fine. And then they never came back again, right? So we lost a client, a very good client, but they never came back again. And so that is one example of how sometimes when you do the right thing, it doesn't always mean material rewards, but it means that I can go back at home at night and I can face my children and tell them that daddy did the right thing. Also during COVID, when the lockdown happened, it hit us very badly. We had no income because we was all locked down. We couldn't go out and shoot. There were all our clients and our partners, their business was also affected. So we were hit extremely badly. And so we were wondering what could we do. And then I noticed that a lot of charities out there, they were also reporting they were having a tough time. Some of them, their donations plunged by 80% because nobody knows how severe this whole COVID situation could be. So I rallied the team and I convinced them. I said, hey guys, let's go out and do work for charity, right? So we put a notice out to the National Council of Social Services to please advertise to your charities that, look, if you guys have a video that you would like us to edit, it could be animated video or pictures that you have or videos you have and you want us to re-edit, just drop us a line and then we will do it for you for free. You know, you do not need to thank us. You do not need to acknowledge us at all. We'll just do it for you. And so we got a flood of requests, and throughout the whole of COVID, we were just busy fulfilling this, right? And of course, we had to dig into our reserves and we had to fund and keep this thing going because we didn't charge the charities anything at all. Because our minds were thinking that we are bad, but imagine the charities who are supporting the most vulnerable. If they go down, who's going to support the most vulnerable? What will happen to them? And I also wanted to encourage our guys to, one day, years from now, when their kids ask them, Daddy, what do you do during the COVID period? They can be proud to say, I helped the charities, right? We were all doing work for charities and trying to keep them afloat.
Who's putting Christ first in your work life? Can you share any examples of God's providence and blessings bestowed on your company?
Okay. Bestowed on my company. Wow. Okay, so I would like to say that, when this big deal comes in or that big deal comes in and everything, but I think I hesitate to do that because the money will come and the money will go, and it will not last. So I try to tune myself to ask what lasts, what really lasts. And for me, the blessings I see is in the lives of the people that I work with. I see the way they have grown over the years to learn how to be more mature, to be more responsible, to be more giving of themselves, to be more cheerful. And yet I see their struggles, right? So they don't always get things right, and neither do I. But I see how these people grow. And I look back and I say, thank you, God, for helping shape this, because these are more valuables. Money comes, then next moment is gone really. But these people, when they do well, they go out wherever they go to, whatever company they leave us and they go to other companies or do other ventures. They go on to do great things, and good for them that they learn this. And so to me, the treasure is seeing the growth of people, the growth of friendships with my clients. Over the years, I made good friends with my clients, and we become good friends as well. So all these things are, I think, blessings from God. Another story about PixelMusica. So this is the location of our office. I'm in the Waterloo Street office right now. these are, if you draw a circumference around the cathedral of the Good Shepherd, the Church of St. Peter, St. Paul, and the St. Joseph Street, we are about 300 meters away from the cathedral, 100 meters away from St. Paul, and less than 100 meters away from the St. Joseph Church. So literally, we are surrounded by the Eucharist. Christ, we are surrounded by Jesus Christ himself. And the blast radius of the Eucharist basically covers us, right? And we feel so blessed that anytime in the afternoon we feel troubled, we feel heavy, we just go across the street, we kneel down and then we pray, right? And we seek Christ, and he's always there, he's always present, and we attend daily masses as well. So one day, one of the interns that joined us, she was very young then, 17, 18, and then she would also frequent, she was not a Catholic, she would go across the street to St. Joseph Church and she would pray. And then she would look up, she shared the story how to look up at these beautiful stained glasses, and she felt so inspired and so moved by God. And then one day she came up to me and she said, Adrian, I want to become a Catholic, right? So, and she decided that she's going to sign up for RCIY. So I also give classes in RCIY on Fridays in Risen Christ. And so she joined us in Risen Christ. And then she journeyed through RCIY with us. And then she became a Catholic. She got baptized. And so, beauty can draw us to God if we do things beautiful. So whatever we do, especially for our clients, we try to craft it as beautifully and as thoughtful as possible so that perhaps something in there can bring someone to Christ. Finally, this is my last slide. I have to talk a little bit about PixelMusica Weddings. It's another brand that we operate under PixelMusica. This one, we serve consumers. And our mission here is to preserve, protect, and promote marriages. So through the videos that we do and the photos that we capture for people getting married, we capture for people who are celebrating even their wedding anniversaries. So Pat and Leo, you are here. I hope you're here. You are one of those people that we took pictures for. And our whole mission is really to preserve the memories of their promise and their special day, to protect their marriage and promote marriages. Because in this day and age, Singapore, 1 in 4 marriages end in divorce. Most of them end within the first 7 years. Now, apart from the impact to the couples themselves, which is so painful, the impact to the children they have to face with divorced parents, and the impact to society as well, the brokenness that carries on in society. A lot of young people these days, they're afraid to get married because they don't know whether their marriage will last. So they go into marriage with with the shields up guarding themselves. And so we wanted to share these beautiful stories that happy, loving, lasting marriages is really, really possible this day, right? In this day and age. So when we talk about preserve, so when we do our videos, we interview the couple so that it's not just them, their happy day and just visuals of their happy day with some music, but actually there's a whole story that's woven inside it. So protect, many of our couples come to us and say, yeah, I chose you. I want to work with you guys because I see my sister, my sister PixelMusica as well. And then whenever she quarrels with my brother-in-law, they will both watch the videos together, and then they will cry, and then they will forgive one another, and then they'll carry on again. They'll pick themselves up and carry on again. We've had stories of our clients that share that every year they'll watch their wedding videos again and remind them of their love. And so it strengthens them, it protects them, right? And it's a very strange thing to promote. So one day my youngest daughter came back. I think she was 14 or 15. She came back home one day from catechism class. And then she was saying, Daddy, today, my teacher was teaching us about the sacrament of matrimony and marriage, right? And they showed their wedding video. It's a husband and wife team. They showed their wedding video, and it's a PixelMusica wedding video. And I was like, wow, okay, so our videos is being used for a teaching tool as well. So I don't know whether we can actually turn the tide just by our work alone, but I'm hoping years from now, when our wedding couples are elderly or maybe gone, their grandchildren pick up this strange device called a USB stick, right? And then they plug it in, and then they play back, and they see the video of Grandpa John and Grandma Mary, and their love for one another and their desire to build a very lasting marriage. They would set a very high benchmark, not just for their children, but their children's children, and for the generations to come, that this is what we must aim for. Never mind if you fail, it's okay, pick up and try again. Aim for a loving, lasting marriage, right? I mean, we all fail and fall short in many ways, So we hope this mission would one day bear fruit. So I'm going to leave you with this. So that's my sharing about how I found meaning and moments of grace in the ordinary work that I do. There's nothing extraordinary about what I do. And in a secular space, right? And there's so much beauty and opportunities in there. So let us give our lives completely to our Lord, working as perfectly as possible, each in their own professional task and state, never forgetting that we must have a single aspiration in all our works to place Christ at the summit of all human activities. And with that, I end my sharing.